The Arizona Cardinals are making star wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins the highest paid non-quarterback ever, giving him a 2-year contract extension worth $54.5 million in new money, $27.25 per year.
How much guaranteed?
Hopkins, who did the deal himself, gets $42.75 million guaranteed at signing.
Oh, that a boy, Nuke! That a boy, Nuke! So this is probably a part of him being traded out of Houston, is he wanted a longer-term deal. Now, if DeAndre Hopkins is always negotiating his own business and he's walking into Bill O'Brien's office saying, hey, I'd like to negotiate a long-term deal, and Bill O'Brien, for whatever reason, didn't respect him in that way, maybe that's why Bill O'Brien wanted him out of the building, because he thought he was in business for himself. Turns out he's just representing himself in business. There's nothing wrong with that at all. He got traded to the Arizona Cardinals. I think everybody assumed there would be some type of negotiation to extend him. Here we go with a big-ass deal, 2-year deal. He'll be able to do this again in 2 years. He'll be able to either stay there as Kyler Murray becomes a stud in the NFL or potentially flattens out. Cliff Kingsbury, who's been in the NFL for, 1 year, and by the end of that year kind of seemed to have it figured out. He lives in a drug lord mansion over there. I mean, this could be a perfect fit for that Arizona Cardinal team. 2-year deal. I would assume their salary cap is set up to have a lot of money now instead of in the future, because they know they have to pay Kyler potentially. But good for them. Good for DeAndre negotiating this himself. Now, the NFL agents are only allowed to take up to 3% of the money, right? Most agents take 2.5% to 2% because they're lowering their percentage, because in competition for other agents that are trying to get you, they make their money off the field shit that they try to negotiate. So him negotiating his own deal only saves him 2 to 3% of that deal, which would have had to go to an agency. But in my eyes, fucking the respect level is just through the roof. Anybody that can handle a negotiation with that magnitude, especially in the world that we're currently in, congrats to Nuke, congrats to the Cardinals. They got an absolute stud. And if Larry Fitzgerald just plays forever, he'll collect $10 million a year for the next 20 years potentially. I mean, good for the Cardinals trying to figure it out. Maybe the Bird Gang out there is really about to get hot and start walking around the fucking desert a little bit.
When you were in the league, was it common for players to negotiate their own deals, or just a new thing?
No. It was like almost looked down upon, as if you're an idiot. You know? It was like, oh, you're going to get beat. You're going to get beat. Because there was guys that negotiated their own deals and got beat. And everybody always mocked the player, right, for getting beat in negotiation, but they never talked about how the team was a fucking scumbag in the negotiation, right? And that's always a very interesting, especially now that I am doing a lot of these conversations and being a part of this. Now, granted, I have lawyers and representatives and people that look into the finer details of things, but when you're talking money with people, it is a very interesting conversation, especially when you're talking about yourself and how much your value is, you think. It's just very weird. It's a very weird thing to do, that you kind of have to put aside any personal grudges. You have to be able to put aside, because whenever they counter, you can't get pissed. You have to be able to come back at them, right? So it's like negotiation in and of itself is wild. I mean, you have good negotiators and you have bad negotiators. I mean, that is a very, very real thing. And I think now that guys are starting to take more ownership, I like the fact that teams are taking care of them better as opposed to trying to expose them, which I think was potentially happening in the past when players trying to represent themselves. Is you put in little things down in the bottom, like, oh, on page 13, they won't read this, they won't read this, they won't go through this, they won't go through this. And they're always like heralded as like, good job on the team fucking over the player. Oh, that's why you shouldn't negotiate for yourself. But you remember, all the people that were saying you shouldn't negotiate for yourself are also all friends with the agents that are potentially losing money from players negotiating for themselves. So it's all one big connected group there that's pitching the story and the narrative on the whole thing. Richard Sherman negotiated his own deal. He was mocked heavily. Then he hit every single incentive and got broken off. Now we got Nuke negotiating his own deal. There's been plenty of other guys. I like it a lot, but it takes a special person, because it's not just easy to walk into a building and say, hey, I'm worth $42 million guaranteed. Fucking pay me. I never played a game here, but let's do it. So, I mean, that at some point, Nuke had to say that. At some point, they came back and they're like, how about $35 million guaranteed? And Nuke was like, well, I'm looking around. I'm seeing what this person's making. I'm seeing what this person's making. I think $43 million's good. And they're like, well, how about 42.5, 42.75? Deal. That's how they land on that number, I guess. But you have to be able to do that while talking about yourself without sounding like a fucking asshole, without sounding like you're upset about what they said. It's a very fine balance. I wouldn't have been able to do it whenever I was in the league still, I don't think.
Why is that?
Because, I mean, there were some things that were relayed to me via an agent that I didn't really know well, who was negotiating my deal with Grigson, and I almost went in there and was like, oh, is that right? Like, I couldn't. But now I'm at the point where, you know, I'm in a good spot. See, in the NFL, there's not options. Because if he's signed to the Cardinals, it's not like he can be like, I'm going to go down the road and check out what the Ford Ranger costs down there, and I'm going to go buy the car. Yeah, right. They'll take my server, or they'll take my business for sure. I mean, if you guys don't want to drop to this price, that's right. In the NFL, you're kind of locked in there. So there's no like he can go and be like, well, I can go get this from here to show them that you can do that, which I have had the incredible ability to be able to do. Like, oh, I see this. This is possible. This is possible. Let's go ahead and do that. So I don't know if I could still do what they're doing. That's why what Nuke just did there is so fucking impressive.
Do you think all his run-ins with Bill O'Brien ultimately helped him? Like, because he basically just had he had to do the exact same thing previously. He's like, okay, well now, like, I mean, hopefully this guy's not as much of an asshole, but like I know what I need to do and what I need to say to actually push
By the way,
this
think
through.
of Bill O'Brien. Think of Bill O'Brien in there. Okay, the whole world's crumbling on him. Okay, for whatever decision he made that particular week that people were questioning, made to the playoffs last year. I mean, had to lead on the Chiefs at one point, then gave up the lead, and then named himself GM after that. But that him sitting in there, you know, doing whatever he's doing, head coach and GM, that's a lot of shit. Obviously, we're trying to figure out how to win games. And DeAndre Hopkins, you got a moment? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sit down, Nuke. What do you want to talk about? You don't like that route we have? You? No. I'm thinking $50 million. Think about Bill O'Brien just being like, get this guy the fuck out of here. How do I, Arizona, you want him? 4th rounder, fucking take it or whatever. That's very interesting if that is, now we don't know that. This is me just hypothetically thinking of why this relationship ended the way it did and why there was some drama, but that kind of got squashed quickly between the two. But it didn't really make sense whenever they got rid of Nuke and they kept Deshaun Watson and they brought in and they gave like a bag of balls. It didn't really make much sense. But now if you think like he's handling his own business, so he's walking into Bill O'Brien, maybe even after games, I don't know if that's how Deshaun or Nuke DeAndre Hopkins does business. I would assume he's not. I assume he's very professional. He just negotiated a $42.75 million guarantee. That is a savvy businessman. But it is interesting if Bill O'Brien couldn't handle that from a player. And I love it.
Especially if he's walking into he's walking into his office. Hey, by the way, no drops today. I had 8 catches, no drops. Just dropping his stats all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be so easy for him.
All right. So I'm looking around the NFL, and I lead in pretty much every stat that matters. So where we were before, we're now up a little bit. I think like another 2 to 3 million. I wish I would. I don't know if that happened, but boy, that'd be fucking awesome if Nuke's just walking in there. Hey, what's up? Saw a game winner today? Me too.
Pretty good.
All right. That's another 2 million. I got to text you. We got to figure this out. What's up, Dick?
So, and the crazy part about this is getting done. He had 3 years left on his contract. So he did a 5-year in 2017 worth $81 million. And he was locked up through 2022, so this locks him up through 2024.
Good for him.